Welcome to A Day in Her Life podcast. I'm your host, Ellie Rinnick, and I love asking women to take me through a day in their life. This week, I am so glad you're joining us for a conversation with Julia Dzafic. Julia is a content creator, marketing consultant, cookbook author, soon to be published in May of 2024, as well as a mom of 2 busy kids. Julia is an OG blogger, and I feel like I've been following her since before Instagram, and I am so excited that she's joining us to tell us about her days. In today's episode, Julia shares how she structures her days into 4 time blocks to maximize her productivity. We discuss how she prioritizes a walk each day with her dog and how she needs her micro breaks between work blocks and between her work and mom life to reset herself. Julia shares how she and her husband make time for each other, including pre-weekend lunch dates to get some solo time before the weekend. I so appreciated Julia's honesty when it comes to the post-dinner hours and what bedtime looks like, and how the reality of the mom that you are sometimes looks different than the mom you thought you'd be. This conversation with Julia was so fun, and since we keep it real on A Day in Her Life, I am so grateful for her patience when my cleaning crew unexpectedly arrived mid-interview. Thank you, Julia. You can all follow Julia on Instagram at lemonstripes or follow along on her website, lemonstripes.com, and I will be pre-ordering her cookbook as soon as it's available, and we'll share that with you all. And as always, thank you for sharing a part of your day with A Day in Her Life. It means so much to me that you're here. I would love for you to share the podcast with anyone else you think would enjoy it. And if you like what you hear, please leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you want more A Day in Her Life, please follow us on Instagram at A Day in Her Life Pod and subscribe to our newsletter on adayinherlife.com. The subscribe box is at the very bottom of the homepage. If you subscribe, you'll get new episodes right to your inbox and the occasional newsletter. I promise no more than once a week. And this week, I shared 5 Friday favorites that I have been loving. And if you have any thoughts, feedback, suggestions, please reach out on Instagram or the contact form at adayinherlife.com. I love hearing from you, and so many great guests and ideas have come from your outreach, so thank you. And now that we've covered our housekeeping items, let's jump into the episode with Julia. Let's have some fun. Hi, Julia. Thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. So let's jump right in. If you wouldn't mind setting the scene for us, tell us who you are, where you live, what your family looks like, and what you do.
Sure. So I'm Julia Dzafic. I live in Westport, Connecticut with my husband, Anel, and our 2 kids. Amalia is my daughter. She's 6 in 1st grade, and I have a son, Luca, who's 2. We also have a pit mix named Boots, very important part of our family, and 10 chickens. So we are a full house over here. I have been a content creator for almost 13 years. I started a blog back when blogs were a thing in 2010 and have been doing it ever since. I started before Instagram was around, pretty much all social media, and grew really organically, and then have just kind of kept going. I was working in marketing full-time when I started my blog and was eventually able to quit and do this full-time now, which has been such a pleasure.
I have been a longtime follower since you lived in New York, and I've been enjoying when you've shared some of the throwback pictures from the blog recently. Those gave me a good reminisce of what trends we were into, like the big bauble bar necklaces and everything.
Oh, those were the good old days. I was really into pattern mixing, big necklaces, color blocking. That was my vibe. Can't wait for them all to come back.
If you saw the pattern mixing my son did for picture day today, it would fit right in back then.
Love him already.
So Julia, let's go through a day in your life, if you wouldn't mind. So why don't you kick us off with what your morning looks like, what time you wake up, anything you do before kids, and then kind of getting them off to school.
Okay. So I'm assuming we're talking weekdays here, but my mornings are a little bit tricky because my husband has to get up and go to work at 5:30. So I'm alone with the kids. And what I've realized in the last 6 years of being a mom is that if I don't get up before my children, my morning falls into shambles. So I wake up every morning at 6:30, set my alarm, make my bed, brush my teeth, do my very extensive skincare routine. Then I go downstairs, drink my AG1. I'm like one of those people who's just obsessed with AG1. Oh, you got yours too. There you go. It's a green juice for anyone who doesn't know. and start prepping for the morning. Usually my son Luca then wakes up around 7:15. I bring him down. We play trucks together. He's very into trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And I start his breakfast. My daughter, Amalia, on the other hand, likes to sleep. So I usually have to wake her up around 7:45 because the bus comes at 8:20. So I'll wake her up at about 7:45 and then feed them both breakfast.
What's breakfast look like?
So my son is a big eater. He'll wake up and say, "Mommy, I need waffles and I need eggs and I need toast and I need cereal." And I'll feed him all of those things. And my daughter doesn't eat very much, so she'll just eat 3 bites of cereal and be on her way. So that's how it kind of works in our house. Then I start the really super fun task, if you're a mom, you know this, of getting them both ready and dressed and out the door.
Mm-hmm.
So the key to this, which I'll get into when we talk about the evening, is prepping the night before. So I have all of their lunches prepped. I have their backpacks prepped. I have their shoes out, their clothes out, and everything ready to go because I'm alone with them. And as you heard, we basically have half an hour between when my daughter wakes up and when she hops on the bus. So it's a stressful half an hour. So then we go outside. We put Amalia on the bus. My son is a huge truck, bus, car, vehicle fan. So he loves to watch her get on the school bus. He waves to the driver.
Aww.
Kids all wave to him. He usually brings a toy bus. It's very sweet. So she gets on the bus and then I drive him to daycare. Then I drop them off. So at this point, I've been up since 6:30 and it's usually around 8:45 by the time I'm done with him. And I feel like I've lived a full day. I bet
always
you get
say
that.
My husband also leaves really early. So I have the kids in the morning and I sometimes leave daycare and I always joke, I like punch my arms in the air and I'm like, the hardest part of the day is over, friends. It's
freedom.
Yes.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. I feel like I've lived a whole life by 9:00. Then I come home and have to tend to my third child, my dog. He doesn't get a walk first thing. He just follows me around the house. So then I walk the dog, which is great because I don't do a lot of exercise, but I make sure to walk for 30 minutes in the morning. So one of the great things about working for yourself is that you can start the day at any point. So instead of starting at 9 a.m., like a traditional job, I usually sit down at my desk at 9:30, 9:40 when I'm done with the dog. So at that point, I make myself a tea. I drink an Earl Grey tea with oat milk and a little bit of honey every morning. And I'll have breakfast. We have chickens, as I mentioned. So I usually just do a scrambled egg on a piece of sourdough toast. Again, is this detail too much?
No, I love
Okay.
I love the detail. Honestly,
Okay.
You could go into your full skincare routine and I'd be into it too. So what is your
okay,
favorite?
I'll do that.
What is your morning routine?
Great. Okay. So in the morning I wash with a gel cleanser from Is Clinical. If you want to know, I can send you all the links. Then I do a vitamin C serum. So I've seen lots of dermatologists and estheticians, and pretty much what I've learned over the course of my skincare journey, as we'll call it, is that vitamin C serum is like the number one most important step in your skincare routine, morning and night. So I use a vitamin C serum. There are so many great ones out there. I have one by SkinCeuticals called CE Ferulic, but there's a lot at different price points that you can try. After that, I do an eye cream, dab it on. And then I use a product called Vintner's Daughter. They have a set. One is a spray that I sprayed on. It's called like the Essence, I think. I spray it on and kind of tap it in. And then I use the Vintner's Daughter serum. So it's like an oil, pat it on and let it dry before I put on any makeup, which I don't do until much later and not every day. So that's my skincare routine in the morning.
I also use the Vintner's Daughter essence and serum. I'm obsessed with them.
It is like a holy grail skin product, right?
I love it so much.
Oh my gosh. I actually had the pleasure of speaking to the founder of Vintner's Daughter, April. She's incredible. I don't know if you know her story, but she's actually a vintner's daughter. She lives in Napa or Sonoma or something, and her, grew up on a winery and decided to create skincare with kind of like the same technique they use to create wine. So it's like a very long organic process as opposed to something more chemical based, which I think is just so cool.
That's so cool. And I love the product as well.
It's agree. Wonderful. Yeah. Game changing.
So now that you've had your oat milk, Earl Grey tea and milk, you're sitting down to your desk. How do you schedule out your workday and what does your workday look like?
Right. Okay. So a fun thing about working for myself and having multiple hats on is that every day looks very different. So I'm going to give you an example of a recent day that I had that I wrote down because I thought it was like a really fun, very productive day. So
that's perfect.
As you mentioned, I am working on a cookbook. So I have just finished the first draft of this cookbook, meaning that I went through and I tested recipes for many, many months. I wrote the recipes. I put them into the document. I wrote head notes for each recipe, which is, the little blurb saying,
Mm-hmm.
I love to eat this with my family on Sunday nights or whatever. And then did a photo shoot for each recipe and shared what it would look like. So that was step one of the book, plus all the intro chapters and everything else. Now I'm on the editing step. So on this particular day, I wake up, I go through what my editor has given me. She has a lot of notes on my introduction. So I spend about an hour going through, writing more of my history and my story because they really want to hear the story about my past, my husband's past, and kind of how we've built this like farm to table life. The book is about, I don't know how much I'm allowed to say. I don't think I can say the title, but it's about what you grow in your garden and how to make food out of that. So
Okay.
it's really fun, kind of like a garden to table cookbook, along with gardening tips from my husband, who is like a master gardener. So I spent about an hour working on that. Then I don't know about you, but I time block. So I need a break between like each activity or each task. So after I finish that, I take a break, like go working from home is kind of like a blessing and a curse. I'll go and put away laundry or do something to kind of get myself out of my head with a podcast on. I'm currently listening to one called The Coco Birthman Story about this influencer who said she was sex trafficked as a child, and then said she had cancer, but it turns out none of these claims were true. So
Ooh.
podcast is fascinating. So I listen to a podcast, put away laundry, and then get back to work. So that's like a 10 to 15 minute break. And I find that if I give myself those breaks between tasks, I'm much more productive during the day. Okay. Then I get back to my computer and it's time to start working on my blog. So I try to post on my blog, which is called Lemon Stripes, about 2 or 3 times a week. It used to be every day, but now with motherhood and a book and all these other projects, I can't do that as often. So I sit down and I'll write the next day's blog post. So the blog post I happen to be writing on this day was a roundup of fall items. So putting together like a list of sweaters and jeans and boots and things that I was really excited for fall. My blog is a kind of amalgamation of motherhood, fashion, recipes, lifestyle. I talk a lot about anxiety. What am I missing? I think that's about it. Yeah. So that particular day I was writing about style and fashion, which I just love. So I put together a Canva collage. I don't know if you've ever worked in Canva, but you can basically move things around and make things look really pretty. So I put together that collage. That takes about an hour. So at this point, it's time for another break. So it's lunchtime. I like to eat my lunch at 11:45. I get starving. I don't know. That's just who I am. So for lunch, I have like 3 go-to lunches. One is leftovers from the dinner before. 2 is like, I guess what do they call it? A girl dinner for lunch. So I'll do like a hummus, crudité. I love Simple Mills crackers made from almond flour, a goat cheese. I can't eat cow dairy. So I'll do like a goat cheese spread and just do like a bunch of veggies from the garden and kind of like a mashup of different things with like a bunch of different dips. So I get enough protein. Or my last go-to is a chopped salad. My favorite chopped salad recipe will be in my book, but I like to get a rotisserie chicken, shred it up, and basically put it in a salad with like a bunch of different things. So that's my lunch. When it's nice out, I like to eat outside. We built a beautiful patio last year, so I take advantage of it as often as I can. So I'll take the dog, we'll go outside, I'll eat my lunch and either call my sister or listen to the podcast or do something like that for about 20 to 30 minutes. And again, if I don't do this, I find that the rest of my day is super non-productive.
Mm-hmm.
In the winter, I'm a little ashamed to admit this, but I will watch like part of a show because I don't really have a lot of time to watch TV. So I'll take my lunch break to watch part of a show. So that's that. Then it's back to work. I'll go back to my desk, finish the blog post with the collage, get all the links, put them all in, send them to my assistant. Then she checks everything to make sure I don't have any typos and make sure that she makes sure that all the links go to the right places, and then finish up with that. The next thing I do is focus on campaigns. So a paid campaign for an influencer is when we get paid to share something on Instagram or TikTok or my blog or newsletter or whatever it might be. Usually these days it's Instagram stories. So a brand will pay me to go on and talk about some product that I've been using or that they sent me to try. So I have to record a video based on a brief that they send. So the brief will usually be like 5 or 6 pages, which will say like, here's some background information on the product. Here are the ingredients, if it's a food or beauty product, and here's what you can and cannot say. Then I go in and with my own voice talk about why I love it, why it's working for me, or why my kids love it. And I'll record that. I'll plug in all the copy overlay and send that to my manager. So my manager, Carly, she handles all of the business side of my paid campaign. So she'll get the campaign, she'll get the contract, she'll work with the brands to get the right price. And I send her all of the content for approval. Then she will send that into the brand, and probably in like 1 to 3 days, I hear back and either get edits and have to edit that, or I can post it as is. So that's why you see a lot of influencers like posting about a product in a different outfit than they're wearing that day. Maybe they'll come on and say, I did this XYZ with my kid today. And then you see them in another outfit or looking a little different or in another area talking about a product. So that's behind the scenes of that. After that, it's time for another break. So I usually do more cleaning because I am crazy and can't work unless my house is clean. I will show you in a second if you want, but I'll usually clean the kitchen and kind of get it ready for the afternoon, because when my kids come home, it just explodes again. And I like to just have it like set for the day. So we've already gone over book stuff, blog stuff, campaign stuff. Then there's kind of like the fourth quad of my day will be for whatever else I need to do. Like if I have to do some accounting work, that's another really fun part of owning your business is you have to pay quarterly taxes and go through your books every couple of weeks. Or I could give you a million examples, but there's a lot of things you have to do on the back end there. So I'll use that fourth quarter for accounting or, following up with a brand or whatever it might be. Another really cool project I'm currently working on is I'm working with this company called Flagship that helps influencers host their own online boutiques. So I started one with them, and I'm kind of bringing in brands that I love. So I'm able to sell their products through like my own space. So for example, the sweater I'm wearing today is from Kilt Collection. I'm obsessed with this brand. I'm getting them onboarded. Jane Wynn is a jewelry brand that I love and wear a lot, like this necklace. I'm getting them onboarded, and I'm able to have one space where I have all of my favorite products. So that's something I work a lot on in my Q4, as I call it.
That's awesome. When is that?
Sorry,
when is that
store
going? No, that's amazing. When is that store going live?
So that store actually went live a little while ago. It's kind of like in beta, so I haven't talked about it a whole lot because we're working on design and making it really beautiful. And one really cool thing about Flagship is that they hired me to be on their board, their influencer board. So I'm working with them on the back end on marketing and kind of like growing their business, which is really, really fun. So we have calls once a month on that. I'm hosting a big event with them here in Connecticut in a few weeks. So yeah, I love being involved with startups. My last full-time job was at a startup, and they're just all really so excited about what they're doing. And I'd love to be a part of it.
Startups definitely have such a fun vibe.
Such a fun vibe. I don't know if I could actually be working in one again. It's a very high stress vibe, but I love being a part of it from the outside.
So as you're wrapping up the end of your day, what does that look like? And then what does the early afternoon timeframe look like after that?
Okay, so then I wrap up Q4 and it's time to kind of move into mom mode. So my daughter gets off the bus at 4. My husband and I take turns with who's going to be with her after school. It's great because we both work for ourselves. He owns a gym, so he's able to be very flexible in his hours as well. So on my turn, if it's my turn that day, she might either come home or have an after school activity. So I have to be ready to go at 3:30 for her either way. So what I like to do is make sure the house is all set, get her snack prepared, kind of wrap up my work day and like take off that hat and move into mom mode. One thing that has helped me a lot is that I try to do something for myself for like 5 or 10 minutes. I call them micro breaks to kind of get me out of my work head and into my mom head. So that might be a walk outside. That might be a 5-minute sun salutation yoga series. That might be a meditation. That might be even just like sitting there staring into space. It might be scrolling Instagram, whatever it is. But doing something to kind of like get out of one mode and into another, I found is very helpful.
I was just talking about that with the guest that I had on this week about how that like liminal space where you like used to commute is so important in like that transition mode from one to the other.
Totally. And I find actually you're right. That's so true. I didn't think about that. But when I work from the library or a coffee shop, I don't really need that because the drive home, I can like sing a song in the car and kind of get out of my head. But if you're going from my home office to the kitchen, it's not, you don't have that time. It's a great point.
Yeah.
So then my daughter gets off the bus around 4 o'clock and she's always famished. I don't know about your kids. Like, I don't think she eats at school, but she's like starving. So her after school snack is usually like a full meal. So we'll go over her day. She'll eat her snack. And then she has, right now, this fall, she's doing 3 activities. She has dance. She does hip hop, jazz dance, gymnastics, and soccer. So she'll go to one of those 3 activities, or if she doesn't have any activities, she spends an hour playing with her Barbie. She's like Barbie obsessed. I never thought I'd be a Barbie mom. I was like, no, I can't, but it is what it is. I'm a Barbie mom now. So she'll play. And during that time, like around 4:45 or 5, when she's done with an activity or done with playing, like I start to make dinner. That's usually closer to 5:15 though. My son gets picked up from daycare at 5:15, and my husband usually does that because I'll be with my daughter or I'll be prepping dinner. So he'll get my son. Luca comes home from school. He's filthy. I have never, this is my first boy. Like, I'm not used to this, but he just like, he smells. He's covered in dirt. Like, I don't know what he does, but he is filthy. So he goes straight into the bath. So he's taking a bath while I'm cooking dinner. I mean, with my husband, he gives him a bath. Amalia will usually be playing next to me. I cook for the family. We all have dinner together. You can find a lot of my favorite recipes in my blog, but we do a lot of like chilies, something I can do in like one pot.
Mm-hmm.
Often I'll do a crock pot recipe. So like during my lunch break, I'll throw something in the crock pot so that it can be ready for dinner. My son will eat whatever we're eating, but my daughter is a very picky eater. So I often have to make her own meal. Again, I never thought I'd be that mother. Like, I don't want to be making mac and cheese for one kid, but she needs calories. So that's kind of where we're at. And we're working on it, but that's where we're at.
Mm-hmm.
Then after dinner is like one of my favorite parts of the day because we all kind of like hang out as a family. We have our next door neighbors are our best friends, and Amalia's 2 best friends live on either side of us. So the neighbor will often come over at like 6:30 or 7, knock on the back door. We have like a sliding glass door and we just see her like creep up and they go play on the swing set for like an hour until bed. Luca is now of the age that he wants to be there. So I'll go out and like push him on the swing. The mom and I will talk and the kids will play and it's all very cute. If that doesn't happen, we all kind of play around and like have a dance party or like wrestle or like play or color or whatever, but like do something as a family. And all 4 of us are usually together. And Elle and I try really hard to be off of our phones during this time because it's like the 1 hour where we're all together during the day, not doing something else. That sounds very idyllic. A lot of nights it's not. So I should be realistic about that. Like some nights we're having meltdowns and someone's tired and someone didn't want to eat dinner and somebody falls. So it's not always that great, but I'd say like 50% of the time it's my favorite part of the day and 50% of the time it's the hardest part of the day. I feel like you get that, right?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. And also like you try to be off your phones, but then sometimes you'll go over and your husband's just scrolling Twitter and you're like, can you please not right now?
It is like, I would say one of our biggest fights. I'm like, you're with our kids for an hour a day. Get off of Instagram, please. You know, it's like you hear these memes right now talking about how guys are always thinking about the Roman Empire. I'm like, he's looking at golf videos or golf pictures. I'm like, you can play golf another time. You're with our kid. Anyway, that's like the forever problem. But we're working on it, I guess. Hopefully we'll get there one day.
I asked my husband about the Roman Empire last night in preparation for talking to you today because you've been sharing some of the really funny anecdotes. And so I texted my husband, how often do you think about the Roman Empire? His response was literally never, except when your dad brings it up, which is often.
There's always one guy, right? It's like either
dad.
never or often. There's no in between. It's so funny. So yeah, we're working on the phone thing.
No, totally. It's a process.
And one thing I will share that's, I think, very important for our family is that our children are monsters when we give them screen time. So we have had to cut screen time out of the week, which is very, very hard and is challenging not only for them because they want it, but for us because it's such an easy way to get them to be quiet and like give us a second to breathe. But we find that when we have screen time on weeknights, they turn into complete monsters. Like they won't go to bed. They'll scream for it. They'll beg for it. The second they go home from school, they want it. So we just have started a hard and fast rule of no screens during the week unless someone's sick or like there's some situation. But it has completely changed our lives. Like it makes things so much better for us. I know that's not true for every family. I have zero judgment for other parents, but like if we let our kids have screens, they're animals.
I definitely noticed that it comes in phases for my kids as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
All my daughter asks for, she's 18 months. Show, Rachel, show,
Oh,
Rachel.
Miss Rachel.
She's
Yeah.
obsessed with Miss Rachel.
Yeah. My son goes, I want watch cause. I want watch cause. That's all he says
Oh,
over and
I
over and
love
over.
that.
And he likes to watch this video of Blippi. I don't know if you're into Blippi. Oh my gosh, he just like runs around and chases this blue bus and he tells you all about a blue bus. It's the most painful thing to watch. So that's all he wants. I'd actually prefer Miss Rachel to Blippi, to be honest. No offense, Blippi, but that video I've seen 1,000 times. So anyway, then it's bedtime, and I have another hard and fast rule because both of our kids want me to put them down. And I
Mm,
think this is very common based on talking to a lot of other moms on Instagram and my friends. So we do every other night without fail, unless somebody's out, I will put one down and my husband will put the other down. There's no arguing, there's no fights about it. This is what's happening. So
mhm.
I'll share if I have Amalia or if I have Luca. So Luca goes to bed earlier. He is like by 7, he cannot hang after 7 o'clock. He just turns into a pumpkin. So at 7 o'clock, I'll say, Luca, it's time to go read books. And he's like my happy little sunshine boy. He's like, okay, usually. If he's on the swings, you have to tear him off and he screams, cries. But I don't know if this is like a second kid thing or a boy thing, but like if he starts crying and screaming, like within a few minutes, I'm like, Luca, we're going to read books and then he's fine. So he doesn't have the long meltdowns. Don't worry. I'm getting to those because we have them. So we'll go up, we'll brush his teeth, we'll read 3 books. We always do 3 books. We put him in his sleep sack. He still sleeps in his sleep sack in his crib. Then we'll sing Baby Beluga, Twinkle Twinkle, and Old MacDonald in that order. I hold him for a few minutes. He always asks for one more hug. And then his new thing, which is so funny, as he goes, Mommy, I will watch you. And he likes to watch me leave. So we go, Mommy, I will watch you. No, Mommy, I will watch you. Just
Oh.
over and over. It's so cute. Usually he doesn't cry before bed. Like I said, he's like the easy one, but sometimes he does. If he does, he still falls asleep really quickly. It's like some dream from the universe because we have one really tough nighttime kid. He is like the dream one. So he goes to bed easily. Then at like 7:45, 8, we start the long process with Amalia. She knows now not to fight going upstairs. She knows she has to do it. We'll brush teeth. We will get her clothes out for the next morning because if we don't pick them at night, we have a little bit of a meltdown in the morning. So she lays it out with the dress and the shorts and she has the whole thing. Often a headband or a necklace is involved. She's very into fashion and she picks all of her outfit herself. If I try to pick her outfits, forget it. She will not wear it. So we put out her outfit for the next day and then we start with a book. So lately she's into chapter books, which has been very fun. So we get to read like a couple chapters of each one before bed and we get like a story going. It's a little bit hard because, my husband will read, then I'll read, then he'll read. So we miss a little bit, but it's nice to like have one longer story and kind of get into the characters more.
Mm-hmm.
We'll do that. And then our general rule of thumb is we set a timer and we'll lay with her for 5 minutes because otherwise she wants us there until 11 p.m. And we're working on this process. We have a very hard time with bedtime with her. She gets very sad at bedtime and often very scared. So our current process that's been working for us is we'll lay with her for 5 minutes. We'll leave and say, you can either read to yourself or lay there, whichever you prefer. She often wants to read a book and I'll say, I'll come check on you in 5 minutes. And we set timers to check on her every 5 minutes, which is tedious and not fun, but it's a lot better than crying, melting down and laying with her all night. So that's kind of where we're at with that. And not ideal, but we're working through it. After that, I come down while I put her to bed. Anel is on cleaning duty. So I make dinner and he cleans up. So he'll clean all the dishes. He'll clean their lunch boxes. He'll empty their backpacks. He will clean the whole kitchen. And then I'll come down and we'll work on making their lunches for the next day. I usually do a snack for each of them and then a lunch for each of them. Unless my daughter will buy certain days if she likes the food and my son will eat the hot lunch at daycare if he likes the foods, but otherwise I pack. Okay. That was a lot. Are we good?
Yeah, no, it's perfect. And now that the kitchen's clean, lunches are made.
Kitchen's clean, lunches are packed, and finally we collapse on the couch. I actually forgot my daughter's shower in there, but before bed she also gets a shower. And she's now at the age where she'll shower herself, which is great. And I can clean up a little bit or do something else while she's showering. So then Anel and I collapse on the couch. We usually will try to watch one show together, but lately, our days have been so long and our nighttime routine has been so long that we we'll like chat for a few minutes and then I'll go and read my book and he'll scroll Instagram and we'll go to bed at like 9:30 or 10.
Yeah.
But usually in like real life, we try to watch one show. Currently we're watching, what's it called? Live to 100 Secrets of the Blue Zones on
Oh,
Netflix.
yeah, I've heard those are good.
Fascinating. So basically this guy goes around and looks at all the blue zones which are areas where there are like an abnormal amount of what do they call centurions, people who live over 100, and talk about like what's happening there that makes them live longer and like have better lives. So it's super interesting. We'll watch one episode of that or whatever we're watching. And then I'll always go up early. I shower at night. So I take a shower, do my nighttime routine, which I'll tell you now.
Do tell.
So I wash also, I cleanse. So in the morning, I have the vitamin C serum, and at night, I use something called an active serum, which is, I don't know how it's different or why, but whatever. That's what my esthetician told me to do. So I do it and it works. So I do that. And then after that serum, I do a LED light mask. So I have the Dennis Gross LED light mask. This is so insane. I look like a serial killer. I put it on. It has a choice of red light or blue light or both. I have acne, but I also have wrinkles. So I do both. So the blue light's for acne. The red light is for like collagen boosting or wrinkles. So I do that. It lasts for 3 minutes. Take it off and then do the rest of the routine. So eye cream, and then Vintner's Daughter essence and serum. So that's my nighttime routine. Brush my teeth, floss, sometimes do a whitening strip. I love these Lumineux whitening strips. I do them a lot. And that's that. Then I get into bed. I always take magnesium before bed. It helps calm me down. It helps with digestion. It helps with sleep. I've been wearing an Oura ring for the last 2 years. And if you have one, you know, it tells you like your sleep score and then your readiness score. So basically like how well you slept and how productive your sleep was. And I find when I take magnesium before bed, my sleep is a lot better. So that's a fun fact. So I take my magnesium, I've done all my skincare, I get in bed and I read for half an hour every night before bed. I have to turn off my phone or I cannot sleep. I try to get the phone off by 10. Doesn't always happen, but that's ideal. And then I read till 10:30 and lights out 10:30. My husband comes up and we both try to get to bed around the same time. So that is my day.
What are you reading these days?
I'm currently reading a book called The Villa. It was like a thriller probably about a year or so ago. I had bought it and then forgot I had it, but I found it in my drawer and I like the cover. It has lemons on it.
Does it have like blue cover? Is it like a blue cover?
Yes. Blue cover with lemons.
That. Yep.
Yes. It's very good. But I will say the last thriller I read that I loved was called The Family Upstairs. So that is a great book rec if you're into thrillers. It like had me. It was one of those ones where I couldn't go to bed at 10:30. I like had to stay up until midnight just reading every night because I was so into it.
I love that. I'm a huge reader. I'm reading. A friend of mine recommended 11/22/63. It's a Stephen King book. It's 30 hours on audio, so it's like a big book.
Dang, that's long. Okay,
but I am hooked. I am like 12 hours in and very hooked on it. So
I've never read a Stephen King book.
Me neither. And she was trying to sell me on Stephen King, and I'm in this book in particular. It's not scary, I will say.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll try that next.
Yeah, be prepared for a long read, but I am hooked.
I mean, if I'm hooked, I prefer it to be long because I don't want it to end, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So I am really enjoying it. And I'm constantly just like popping in my earphones to keep listening.
So are you a listening? Are you like an audiobook person?
I do a ton of audio. Probably like 3/4 of my reading is audio because I do a lot of reading while I cook or just like chores. I'll get stuff done. But I do love a good book. But I'd say majority is audio these days.
That's interesting. I feel like I need to be better about that. The only one I've listened to recently was the Prince Harry books. I wanted to hear it with his voice, which I loved, by the way.
I love a book narrated by the author.
Oh my God.
Like
same.
The best kind.
Same.
Yeah.
Agreed. So that was the last audiobook I listened to, but I feel like I do so many podcasts during the day that like that's my listening time. And then my reading time is visual.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I don't actually, even though I have a podcast, don't do a ton of listening to podcasts. So that's probably why. Also, I do like whenever I go for a walk and stuff, that's when I do a lot of reading.
Yeah. No, see, that's when I do my podcast. I love like any true crime podcast. Like I'm a stereotypical suburban mom. I just want all the true crime. I love it.
I'm sure you've listened to Crime Junkies. I just read her book too. All Good People Here.
Oh my God, maybe I need to do that.
That was a good one. That was a good one.
Okay.
I didn't see all the twists coming, which I figure if you read as many crime stories as Ashley Flowers does, you probably can see all of the twists coming. So you can make up some
Okay.
twists that you wouldn't see.
Okay. I need to read it. That sounds great. It's a good idea.
So you guys head to bed at around 10 and then 10:30 and then kind of repeat the next day.
Rinse and repeat. Yeah.
How do you make time for relationships with your friends throughout the day or a given week?
Mm. So what's interesting about my friendships is that a lot of them are a lot of my friends are entrepreneurs, and I think we are drawn to each other because of that.
Hmm.
So we're very flexible. So I have like one group of friends, for example, that we have lunch like every 3 or 4 weeks. And, I'll take a longer lunch that day because, again, I work for myself, so I can do that, which is really cool.
Hmm.
I used to feel very guilty about doing that, like taking time out of the day for myself on a work day, because, when you work in an office, you're so ingrained in like, you have to be here for these hours. But over the years, I've realized that that's so important for especially friendships when you're a working parent. Like there's no
Hmm.
time otherwise. So I'll do lunch with friends often, or there's like a couple friends I have where when I'm walking the dog, we'll go for a walk together. Like I live in a beach town, so we'll like take a walk on the beach with our dogs, or something like that. The other last thing I've been trying to do more, because my therapist tells me to work out more for my mental health, is taking soul cycle classes with friends or going to some sort of workout with a friend. So that's kind of the way I see my friends during the week. I also often so Anel has a standing date every Thursday. He does like some golf simulator thing with his pals. I don't know. So then I try to make like one friend date a week at night if I can, and like go to dinner or drinks or whatever.
Yeah, I love that. And also I love the parody of that. So if Anel has it, trying to schedule something for yourself as well.
Yes, exactly. And of course, I feel guilty when I go out, but he doesn't. So I'm working on that.
I am working on that too. I am very much working on that.
It's really hard.
Yeah.
It is.
How do you, for your business and for your family, how do you stay organized?
Well, I have to shout out Kelly, who is my friend who helps me on the back end of things. She sets me up. We use an app called Monday, and she kind of keeps
Hmm.
me really organized there with like a content calendar and things I have to do like on the book, on my blog, on everything. It's like very organized there. I strive to be a very organized person, but I'm like not as organized as I need to be. So she helps me on the work side. On the home front, I like have it down. I feel like I don't know how I stay organized, but I just keep running lists at all times. Like we have a Google Keep, which is
Hmm.
just like a Google app, and Anel and I both have access to it with like things we have to do by certain dates and groceries and stuff like that. So I write every single thing down, and that's the only way I can remember it.
I'm a big list person as well. So I
Yeah.
totally
Yeah.
understand that. In terms of your relationship with Anel, how do you prioritize your relationship during the week or during a given day?
So it's tough because he's out so early, and
Hmm.
then, we really only have an hour after the kids are in bed alone. So we always have a date night. We try to always have a date night every week, and we'll do that like either on a Friday or a Saturday, like, or during the week if I don't have plans with a friend. Like I don't want to be out twice from my kids during the week because,
Hmm.
they're very emotional. So we'll try to do a date night every week, and we'll go out to dinner and just like connect, put our phones down. That's something that like we've realized we really need to do, or our relationship goes off the rails at least every 2 weeks, I'd say.
Hmm.
Weekly is ideal. The other thing we do is, because he works for himself, again, he usually gets out early on Fridays, and sometimes on Fridays we'll go to lunch together and just like connect and get like kind of prepare ourselves for the weekend, because weekends are challenging.
Parenting marathon.
Yeah, parenting marathon. So we'll do that. Another thing we like to do is we have a fire pit in the back, and we'll like sometimes just fire that up and sit outside with like either like I'm not drinking as much anymore, but like a glass of wine or even like a cup of tea. We make fresh teas from our garden. He grows mint and chamomile. So we'll
Oh,
often
wow.
like I mean, that sounds like we live on a homestead, which we basically do at this point, but we'll like have a cup of tea by the fire, and like we call it like a chat night, and we try to have like a date night at home and really just connect without our phones, because it's so easy to not do that.
Hmm.
But when we do, we feel just so much closer.
Love that. And you've talked about this actually a lot on social media, but choosing to step back a little bit from drinking, how has that affected your days, or how do you notice that affects you?
Well, it affects me a lot, actually. So people are always like, why? I stopped drinking completely, like cold turkey, for 6 months. pretty much, except for like a drink here or there when I couldn't do it. But people would say, why are you doing this? You're not an alcoholic. Like, you don't need to stop. But I'm not an alcoholic, but I felt like my relationship with alcohol was very unhealthy in that I would drink it if I were stressed. I have an anxiety disorder. I'm medicated for it. I'm in therapy for it. But I would get really anxious and then drink too much and then feel worse the next morning and then feel more anxious because I drank. And it was like this cycle that was just not healthy for me personally. I know, having a glass of wine every night is great for a lot of people. It is not great for me. So I was like, I need to make a change. This is just not working for me anymore. I feel like I have a hangover or a headache every day. I'm feeling very, very anxious. So I stopped. And during those months when I stopped, I have never felt so physically like vibrant. I can't describe it any other way. I felt really good. I felt really clean. Like I wasn't playing these games with myself anymore, like, well, I'll only drink on these days, or I'll only drink if this happens. And it just kind of like took a whole portion of anxiety out of my life. Now I'm at the point where like, I don't feel like I have that relationship with alcohol anymore. So if we're on a date night and they make really great cocktails at a restaurant, I'll have one, but I can stop at just one. And if I'm feeling really stressed, if my kids are both melting down, I don't feel like I need to have a drink to like get myself in a good headspace. So I feel like that break was really important for me. And now my relationship with alcohol has changed. I feel a lot different during the day when I don't drink, because even if I have one glass of wine, I notice a dull headache and like I feel a little bit more tired in the morning. So I have energy. I don't know. I can't explain it besides I have energy and I feel happier.
I've been feeling similarly in terms of like, I can tell when I wake up if I had a drink or not the night before. And if I have a glass of wine, I will wake up at 4:00 in the morning without fail. I'll be able to go back to sleep, but like, I'm like, oh, damn, it's because I drank last night. Like, and so I can definitely, being more conscious of the physical repercussions of a habit that I have had has been interesting. And I think it's been great to see you talk about it on Instagram. I know some other influencers have talked about it, and it just kind of brings that to my consciousness and thinking like, oh, maybe that's why I have this little headache in the morning, even though I only had one glass of wine.
Right. And it also doesn't have to be black and white.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I think there's like so many in betweens, and you get a lot of praise if you stop drinking completely. And then there's a lot of like, ooh, yeah, let's have fun and drink. There's not no, but it's hard to find that in between. And that's kind of where I am. And I think doing what feels right for our body, but also like, it's okay to go out and have fun once in a while and like maybe not feel great the next day, but as long as it feels good for you, like everybody's different.
Yeah, absolutely. Julia, how do you make time? You work in a pretty creative industry. How do you foster your own creativity during the day or in a week?
Yeah, so that is like probably the most challenging thing I would say about my job and what I do is that I have to be in a certain headspace to feel creative. I saw this magnetized when I was writing my book. You cannot come up with something out of thin air, right? Like I personally have to be in the right mind space to come up with a recipe or a post or something to put out there in the world. If I'm feeling anxious, if I'm feeling bogged down, if, it's raining out, there's all these things that kind of can change that. So I have to do certain things to kind of like keep myself on track. So those breaks, for example, like it's so silly, but if I'm like putting laundry away or cleaning the kitchen and listening to a podcast or not even just like blasting my favorite music, like that's where ideas come out for me. It's not when I'm sitting at my desk, just like, what do I post? What do I post? What do I do? Like that does not work for me. So I have to take those breaks and kind of move my body. I also find that meeting with very like-minded creative people helps me a lot. Working from home, doing what I do is very isolating. But like I mentioned before, a lot of my friends are creators or influencers or entrepreneurs, and it's nice to be able to bounce ideas off of them. So if we all have lunch together, we can talk through ideas, or even just talking about what the other people are doing. It kind of gives me ideas for myself, and it's nice to have those connections. So I would say in any creative field, like try to find people who are doing something similar or something creative, even if it's like in a different world, and like just talk about it. Even just like getting your words out, like, oh, I'm working on this book. And someone might ask, well, what kind of recipes are you doing for desserts? And I'm like, I don't know. Well, I had this idea, but what do you think about that? And then maybe they kind of like add to it. I don't know. Just
Sorry.
Yeah.
Oh, my cleaning people just showed up. I did not know
Oh,
they were
okay.
coming today.
It's all good.
Give me 1 second. I'm just
Yeah,
going to
yeah, yeah.
run
Take your
downstairs
time.
and let them in. All right, Julia, sorry.
No problem.
Sorry about that. I forgot they were coming today. I thought they were coming tomorrow. So, when you like tidy between when the cleaning people get here,
Yes.
kind of forgot to do that.
I know. That's the worst.
Hopefully you
I'm
don't
sorry.
mind. There's a little bit extra mess. In that vein, we were talking about my cleaners coming. What is something you outsource, or what are some things that you and Annelle have chosen to outsource for your family?
I feel like it's a hard conversation because we have, we work really hard and we have the privilege to outsource a lot of things, and that like rubs people the wrong way sometimes. But I also, we can't do our jobs without it. So one thing is daycare. So my son is 2, he's in daycare, and if he's home, I cannot work because he's like on my body at all times. And that, for some reason, when I first talked about sending my kids to daycare, people got their feathers really ruffled by that. Like, if you work from home, you need to have your kid at home, but that does not work for me, does not work for my family. And also my kids thrive at daycare. Like, they love it. They have friends, they have fun, they're socialized. So daycare is one thing. So childcare. 2 is house cleaning. I tried, when we moved from the city, I tried so hard to clean my house once a week, and it took so much time. And so we realized, we could afford a certain amount. So we have someone come every week to clean the house, and she's amazing. She's been with us for 7 years now, and she's wonderful. She's like part of the family, and she's great. The other thing is outside stuff. So my husband like would not let anyone mow our lawn for the first 2 years we lived in our house, but it would take him 4 hours on weekend days. And as you know, weekend days are marathons. So I was like, I put my foot down this year. I was like, this cannot happen anymore. Like, you need to hire landscaping people. So we now have landscaping people too, which is amazing.
I totally can sympathize with that, because my husband was like, oh, I'll do the lawn, and then he'd be busy for like an hour and a half, and I was like,
oh yeah,
that's not the point. Like, I'll do the lawn then.
Yeah,
I'll go listen to my audiobook for an hour and a half.
Exactly. And we have a huge garden and all these chickens, and that is a lot of work. So he's already out there all the time doing that. So that lawn had to put the kibosh on that.
What is a ball that you let drop, or a decision that you are conscious about deprioritizing in your life right now?
I don't know if it's like a big ball, but it's kind of like on an everyday basis. Like, sometimes when days are really hard and everyone's in a bad mood, and we like, my kids, for example, we have a really hard time with transition in our house. So like, we're transitioning from kindergarten to first grade for my daughter, and there's a lot of feelings, a lot of emotions, a lot of tears, and that's really hard for everyone in the house to deal with, and really kind of just sad. And I get emotionally drained from it too. So like, there are nights when I'm like, I'm a cookbook author, I should be cooking dinner every single night, and I'm just like, we need to order Uber Eats. Like, we just have to. And I find myself doing that more often than I'd like to, but at the end of the day, I just try to remind myself that we're in a phase, and that's okay. And also, like, my kids are fed.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah. I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that feeling.
Yeah. And I have guilt about it, and I wish I didn't, but like, I really do. A, spending extra money on food that we don't need to be spending, and B, like, not cooking something myself is just, it's something that I feel like very strongly about, I guess.
And you mentioned all the chickens and the garden. How do you guys make time for the garden in your life? Is that you and the kids and your husband? Like, how is that all Annelle?
I am 0% involved in that. My favorite activity is weeding. Like, if I get stressed out, I'll go weed, but I have nothing to do with the garden. It's him. He grew up on a farm. So this is like his life's work. He's wanted a garden since we met. Like, this is like his dream. So during COVID, he had a 20 by 16 garden built. It is like another house basically in the backyard. It looks like a farm, plus a chicken coop on top of that. So he goes out, it's from, I would say, like May he plants until like October. So that's the season. And he goes out every day. So he gets home from work earlier than most because he gets there so early. So he'll work from like 6 to 3 instead of like, 9 to 5. And he'll come home in between 3 and 4, like before Molly comes home from school. He'll go out there and he spends the entire hour in the garden. I have no idea what he does. He feeds the chickens, he cleans things, he weeds, he plants, he harvests. He often comes in with like bowls of tomatoes this big. We are like giving eggs away left and right, but He does it all. And one thing that's been really cool is that my daughter was never really like an outside kid. Like she's not into the garden that much. She like gets excited about a few things and she likes to get the eggs. But my son is like obsessed. The second he gets home from school, he's like, I want to go outside. I want to get raspberries. I want to get
Aw.
tomatoes. And he'll eat like the cucumber right off the vine and he'll eat the tomatoes and the raspberries. And he's like very into picking it himself. So it's been really cool to see that over the last year as he's like walking and talking and becoming a little dude.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
And then Julia, where can people learn more about you and follow you?
So I have a blog, as I mentioned, it's Lemon Stripes, lemonstripes.com, but I'm more active on Instagram and my handle there is at Lemon Stripes. You'll also be able to buy my cookbook in May 2024. I will be posting everywhere and anywhere and shouting from the highest of mountaintops as soon as it's ready for pre-order. And that's where you can find me.
Awesome. And then Julia, what is your favorite part of a day in your life?
Oh gosh, I don't know why I didn't prep this one earlier. I would say, I mean, is it bad to say after we get the kids to bed and we can just sit down on the couch?
No, there's no rules.
That's probably my favorite part of the day is when I'm like, if we had a good day and no one cried and we can sit down and be like, we did it. We got through today. That's like my favorite part of the day.
I love that. Julia, thank you so much for being a guest on the podcast today. It was so fun to catch up and meet you in person virtually after following you for so long. And this was such a delight.
It was so nice to meet you too. Thank you for having me on. I hope this is helpful for people. I can't wait to listen to it.